Rashid had lived a quiet life for many years. People in the town always said he was a calm and gentle man, someone who never raised his voice and never argued with anyone. He worked at a small workshop where he repaired furniture, made wooden chairs, and sometimes fixed old doors that people brought to him. He was good with his hands, and he was known for being honest. He lived alone in a small house on the edge of town. 5 years had passed since his wife, Sana, had died. After her death, he stopped expecting much from life. He woke up, went to work, came home, made simple meals, and spent his evenings sitting quietly in his courtyard. Every weekend, Rashid visited his sister who lived in a nearby village. He would take the afternoon train on Saturdays and return on Sundays. It was a small habit that kept him connected to his family. The train station itself was old, with cracked paint and benches that creaked when people sat on them. But it had its own charm. Vendors sold tea, newspapers, and warm snacks. Children ran around chasing pigeons. People came and went, each with their own worries and hopes. On one particular rainy afternoon, Rashid walked into the station holding his umbrella. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the sound of rain hitting the metal roof filled the air. He was early for the train, so he looked around for a place to sit. That was when he noticed something unusual, something that made him stop and look twice. On the far corner of the station platform, sitting alone on a wooden bench, was a young woman wearing a bridal dress. Her bright dress was now damp from the rain, and her makeup had smudged slightly. At first, Rashid wondered if he was imagining it. It was not a place where anyone expected to see a bride. She held her suitcase close to her, and her hands were shaking. Her eyes looked red, as if she had been crying for a long time. People around her kept glancing in her direction, but no one approached her. Some stared with curiosity. Others whispered to each other, trying to guess what might have happened, but the girl sat still, looking lost and scared, as if the whole world had suddenly fallen apart around her. Rashid felt something stir in his heart. He did not know who she was, and he had no idea what her story might be, but he knew that someone sitting alone like that needed help. He slowly walked toward her, careful not to startle her. "Are you all right?" he asked gently, standing a little distance away so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. The young woman looked up at him. For a moment, she hesitated to speak. Then she swallowed hard and tried to wipe her tears with the back of her hand. I don't know what to do," she answered softly. Rashid noticed that she was breathing unevenly, as if trying to hold herself together. He sat on the bench a little away from her, keeping a respectful distance. "My name is Rashid," he said calmly. "If you need help, you can tell me. I won't trouble you." The girl looked down again before responding. "My name is Mehak," she whispered. "I was supposed to start my new life today. But—" Her voice broke, and fresh tears filled her eyes. Rashid did not interrupt her. He simply waited, letting her speak in her own time. "I was supposed to meet my groom at this station," she continued slowly. "We were supposed to travel to his city together after the ceremony. Everything was arranged. My family had seen him. Everyone said he was a good match. But he never came." She took a shaky breath. "His phone is switched off. His family is not answering. I waited for hours." Rashid felt a deep sadness for her. Being abandoned on such an important day was heartbreaking. He could only imagine the shock she must have felt. "Did you contact your own family?" Rashid asked softly. Mehak nodded, but her face tightened. They said I can't come back home like this. They are embarrassed. They told me to stay somewhere else until they figure out what to do. But I have nowhere to go." Her voice trembled again. "I don't even have enough money with me. Everything I planned, everything I believed, it all collapsed in one day." Rashid felt a heaviness in his chest. He knew what loneliness felt like. He had felt it for years. But this young woman was facing a different kind of pain. A pain that came with shock, fear, and betrayal. And she was facing it alone. Around them, the rain kept falling, and people continued to walk past. But it felt like Rashid and Mihak were sitting in a small world of their own, where time had slowed down. Rashid reached into his small bag and took out a bottle of water. He placed it near her. "Please drink," he said. "You need to calm yourself. You've been crying for a long time." Mihak stared at the bottle, then nodded slowly and took it. Her hands were trembling so hard that Rashid had to help unscrew the cap. She drank a little and wiped her face again. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rashid didn't know what to say, but he knew he couldn't leave her alone. Not in that condition. Not at a railway station where she had no idea what would happen next. "Is there anyone else you want me to call?" he asked, trying to give her options. She shook her head. "No one will help." "Do you have a place to stay?" he asked carefully. "No," she replied in a weak voice. Rashid looked around. The station master was busy with passengers. Vendors were calling out to customers. No one paid attention to the girl anymore. But Rashid could not ignore her. He thought for a long moment. This was not a small decision. Taking responsibility for someone he had just met was serious. But he also knew he could not walk away and leave her in danger. She was clearly alone, scared, and abandoned, and she had done nothing wrong. He spoke softly. "Listen, Mihak. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. But you cannot stay here like this. It's getting dark. You are alone. This is not safe for you." Mihak lowered her eyes. "I know," she whispered. "But I don't know where to go." Rashid took a slow breath. "I live nearby. My house is small, very simple. I am alone there. If you want, you can come there for now. Only until you figure out what to do next. I will not trouble you. You will be safe. I can contact people, ask for help. Look for a temporary place for you later. But tonight, you need a roof." Mihak looked shocked at first. She wasn't expecting such kindness from a stranger. She looked at his face carefully, trying to understand his intention. Rashid kept his expression calm and respectful. "You don't have to trust me immediately," he said. "But I promise you, I will treat you with respect. You are someone who has gone through something painful. You need protection right now, not more fear." Mihak looked at her own hands, at her suitcase, at the bridal dress she was still wearing. She felt small and lost, as if the world had suddenly become too big. Finally, she nodded slowly. I don't have any other option. I will come." Rashid stood up and held the umbrella so the rain wouldn't fall on her. Mihak lifted her small suitcase and stood beside him. People watched as they walked out of the station together, an older widower and a bride who had been left behind. But Rashid ignored the curious looks. He knew why he was doing this. He could not leave someone helpless in a moment of crisis. As they walked through the rainy streets toward his house, Rashid kept a respectful distance. Mihak walked silently. But every step she took made her feel a little less alone. Rashid felt something new inside him, something he hadn't felt since his wife died. A quiet sense of purpose, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, life was giving him a chance to help someone in a way that truly mattered. And Mihak, though afraid and confused, felt for the first time that day that she might not be as abandoned as she thought. Their paths had crossed at a train station on a rainy afternoon, two people carrying different kinds of pain. And neither of them knew that this unexpected meeting would change their lives in ways they never imagined. Rashid walked slowly beside Mihak, holding the umbrella so she would not get wet. The rain had softened, but the roads were still shiny with water, and the air smelled of wet soil. Mihak kept her gaze low, holding her bag close to her chest as they made their way through the quiet streets. Rashid didn't speak much. He knew she needed time to gather herself. After several minutes, they reached Rashid's small house. It was simple, with a low boundary wall, a small garden patch, and an iron gate that squeaked a little when he opened it. Mihak looked around nervously. Even though the home looked peaceful, entering a stranger's house was not easy for her. Rashid noticed her hesitation. "You can sit in the courtyard first," he said gently. "You don't have to come inside right away. Take your time." Mihak nodded slowly. She followed him into the courtyard, where there was a small wooden bench. She sat down carefully. Still holding her bag, Rashid placed the umbrella aside and brought a clean towel from inside the house. "You can dry your hair with this," he offered, placing it next to her, but not handing it directly to avoid making her feel pressured. Mihak whispered a quiet, "Thank you," and picked up the towel. Rashid stepped away, giving her space. He went into the kitchen to prepare tea. His hands moved quickly but carefully. As the tea boiled, he glanced at the door and saw Mihak staring at the ground. Her shoulders slightly trembling, he felt a deep sense of responsibility settle inside him. He hoped he was doing the right thing. When the tea was ready, he brought 2 cups to the courtyard. "It's just simple tea," he said softly. "It might help you feel warmer." Mihak accepted the cup with both hands. The warmth of the tea soothed her slightly. She took small sips, trying to steady herself. After a few minutes of silence, Rashid spoke gently. "You don't have to tell me anything more if you don't want to. But if you need help, I will do what I can." Mihak took a deep breath. "Everything happened so fast," she said, her voice faint. "In the morning, everyone was happy. I was getting ready for my new life. And then, he didn't come. I waited at the station. I called him again and again. His family didn't answer. When I called my parents, they told me not to come back home. They said people would talk, and they didn't want that." Her hands tightened around the teacup. Tears filled her eyes again, but she blinked them away. Rashid listened quietly, not interrupting. "I don't understand what I did wrong," she continued. "Why did this happen? Why did they do this to me?" Rashid felt a deep ache in his heart. "You did nothing wrong," he said softly. "Sometimes people make promises they cannot keep. Sometimes life becomes unfair in ways we cannot explain. But your worth has not changed because of what happened today." Mihak lowered her head. "It feels like everything is over." Rashid shook his head lightly. "No. It feels like that now because you're hurting. But pain does not mean the end. It just means a difficult beginning. And you are not alone right now." These simple words brought a slight warmth to her heart. No one had spoken to her like that since morning. Everyone else had only questioned, judged, or avoided her. Rashid's calm voice made her feel human again. After she finished her tea, Rashid led her inside, but he walked ahead so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. The house was modest and clean. The walls were light-colored, the furniture simple. There was a small prayer corner, a wooden table, and shelves filled with tools he used for his work. Rashid stopped in front of a closed door. "This was my late wife's room," he said quietly. "I haven't changed anything inside, but it's clean and safe. You can stay here for now. You'll have privacy." Mihak looked at him, surprised by the respect he had shown her. I don't want to trouble you," she said softly. "You're not troubling me," Rashid replied. "You need a place. And this room has been empty for a long time. It will be good for someone to use it again." She slowly pushed the door open. Inside, the room was simple but peaceful. There was a neatly made bed, a small table, and a few books on a shelf. A soft, faint scent of old roses lingered in the air, perhaps from the things Rashid's wife once owned. Mihak stepped inside quietly. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed. This room felt like a shelter after a storm that had almost drowned her. "If you need clothes," Rashid said from the doorway, "I can bring something clean for you. You can change and rest. We will think about everything else later." Mihak nodded, unable to speak for a second. She felt tears rising again. But these tears were different. They were from relief, not fear. Rashid brought a simple dress that belonged to his niece. "She left this here last time she visited," he explained. "It might fit you." Mihak accepted it gratefully. Rashid then stepped outside to give her privacy. While she changed and washed her face, Rashid sat in the courtyard. He thought about what tomorrow would bring. A stranger staying in his home might cause people to talk, but he didn't care. He cared only about doing the right thing. He remembered the loneliness he had felt after Sana died. There were days when he wished someone would check on him, talk to him, or simply ask if he was all right. Mihawk's pain was different, but the emptiness in her eyes reminded him of that time. After some minutes, Mihawk came out of the room wearing the simple dress. She looked tired, but calmer than before. Rashid noticed that she still seemed scared. "You can rest now," he said gently. "You need sleep. You have gone through too much today." But Mihawk shook her head slightly. "I don't think I can sleep yet. My mind is filled with too many thoughts." Rashid understood. "Then sit in the courtyard for a while. The air is cool. It might help you relax." They sat quietly. The night was peaceful. The rain had stopped, and water dripped softly from the leaves of the small plants in the garden. A street lamp outside the house cast a warm, yellow glow. After a few minutes, Mihawk whispered, "Thank you for helping me. You didn't know me. You had no reason to care. But you helped me when even my own family didn't." Rashid shook his head gently. "Sometimes, strangers see pain more clearly than the people close to us. And kindness doesn't need a reason." Mihawk looked down at her hands. "I feel ashamed," she said softly. "Everyone at the station was staring at me. People must think something is wrong with me." "There is nothing wrong with you," Rashid said firmly but kindly. "People stare at anything unusual. They will forget it by tomorrow. What matters is that you stay safe and rebuild your strength." Mihawk's eyes shimmered. Those words gave her a small but important feeling hope. Something she had lost earlier that day. Rashid stood up after a while. "I will prepare some food," he said. "You must eat something." Mihawk tried to protest. "I'm not hungry." "You still need to eat," Rashid insisted gently. "Even a little." He went to the kitchen and made rice with lentils. A simple but warm meal. When he brought the plates, Mihawk ate slowly at first. But eventually, her body relaxed as she tasted the warm food. For the first time since morning, she felt a sense of safety. After they finished eating, Rashid washed the dishes and told her, "You can lock the room from inside. If you need anything, you can call me. I will be in the next room." Mihawk nodded, holding her bag close to her. She went inside the room and closed the door gently. Rashid waited until he heard the soft click of the lock before going to his own room. That night, Mihawk lay awake for some time, staring at the ceiling. The pain of the day still hurt, but something inside her felt different now. She was still scared, still confused, but she had found a place where she wasn't judged, abandoned, or blamed. Rashid, in his room, lay on his bed thinking about the unexpected turn his life had taken in just one day. A stranger now slept in the next room, someone who needed protection, someone who had walked into his life without warning. He wondered why destiny had brought her to him, and why he felt such a strong responsibility toward her. As sleep finally came to both of them, the quiet house held two hearts that were broken in different ways, one from loneliness, one from betrayal. They did not know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in a long time, both felt a faint light in the darkness. A light that came not from luck, but from simple human kindness. The next morning, sunlight entered the small room where Mihawk slept. She woke up slowly, unsure for a moment where she was. Then everything rushed back into her mind: the station, the long wait, the painful calls, the tears, and Rashid's unexpected kindness. For a few seconds, she just sat on the bed, breathing deeply and trying to steady her thoughts. When she stepped out of the room, she found the courtyard bright and peaceful. Rashid was already awake. He was sweeping the ground, moving calmly like he did every day. When he heard the door click, he looked up. "Good morning," he said gently. "Did you sleep?" Mihawk nodded slowly. "A little, thank you." "There is breakfast on the table," he said. "I made tea too." Mihawk walked toward the small wooden table where Rashid had placed warm tea and simple food, fresh bread and eggs. Everything was arranged neatly. She realized he had woken up early to prepare it before she came out. It touched her heart more than she expected. Rashid didn't sit with her. He stayed busy with small chores around the courtyard, giving her space. Mihak ate quietly, feeling strangely safe in this new place. After breakfast, Rashid finally sat down. "If you want to talk about your plans," he said softly, "we can think together. I don't want to pressure you. Take your time." Mihak's eyes dropped to her lap. "I feel lost," she admitted. "I don't know what to do now. I have no place to go." "You don't have to decide today," Rashid said calmly. "First, you should rest and clear your mind. Only then will you see things more clearly." His words eased her heartbeat. No one had given her patience before. Everyone had only pushed her to solve things quickly, without caring how broken she felt inside. For the next few days, Mihak stayed quiet, but slowly settled into the peaceful rhythm of the house. She helped with small things like washing dishes or watering plants, but Rashid never expected anything from her. He would gently say, "You can rest. You're still recovering." And Mihak would smile softly, appreciating his kindness. One afternoon, as Rashid repaired a broken chair in the courtyard, Mihak sat nearby sewing a small tear in her borrowed dress. The silence between them felt comfortable. Finally, Rashid began to share something he had kept inside for years. "My wife's name was Sana," he said quietly, keeping his eyes on the chair he was fixing. "She was a kind woman. She used to sit where you're sitting now, and stitch clothes for children in the neighborhood." Mihak looked at him, listening without interrupting. "She was sick for many years," he continued. "I took care of her, but some fights cannot be won, no matter how hard you try." His voice softened, but there was no bitterness in it, only memories. "After she passed away, this house felt too empty. I stopped talking to people. I stopped expecting anything new in life." Mihak's heart ached for him. She had seen loss too, but in a different form. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Rashid shook his head gently. "Life teaches everyone in different ways. Some lessons are painful, but they make us stronger." Those words comforted Mihak more than he realized. As the days passed, she opened up too. She shared stories of her childhood, how she loved drawing, how she dreamed of becoming a designer, how she always tried to keep her family happy. She also spoke of her engagement, the excitement she had felt, and the final heartbreak at the station. Sometimes she cried while talking, but Rashid never looked away or acted uncomfortable. He simply listened, quietly and respectfully, letting her release the pain she had carried alone. One evening, after a week had passed, Rashid said, "If you want, I can help you look for work. Something small. Something that will help you stand on your own feet again." Mihak's eyes widened. "Work? Will someone even hire me?" "Yes," Rashid replied confidently. "You are skilled. You can stitch, design, and help with tailoring. I know a woman who runs a small shop. I can ask her." Mihak felt a spark inside her, a feeling she thought she had lost hope. The next morning, Rashid took her to the local tailoring shop. The owner, an older woman named Zubaida, recognized Rashid immediately. "This is Mihak," Rashid said politely. "She is skilled with stitching. Maybe she can help at your shop?" Zubaida, after asking Mihak a few questions and seeing her work on a sample cloth, agreed to take her on a trial basis. Mihak was given simple tasks, at first hemming clothes, repairing seams, organizing fabric. She worked quietly and diligently. For the first time in days, she felt useful again. Every evening when she returned home, Rashid would ask, "How was your day?" And she would tell him everything, the work she did, the customers who came, and the new patterns she was learning. Their conversations became smoother, warmer. Bit by bit, her sadness began to soften. The fear that once controlled her heart slowly grew weaker. Rashid noticed the change too. He saw how her shoulders, once tense with worry, now relaxed. Her eyes, once filled with tears, now held a soft brightness. One evening, while they shared a simple dinner, she said quietly, "I don't think I can ever repay your kindness." Rashid smiled slightly. "Kindness is not something you repay. It is something you pass forward when you can." Mihak paused, then admitted, Before I met you, I thought my life was over. But now, I feel like I can stand up again." "I'm glad to hear that," Rashid replied, "because you deserve a life full of dignity and peace." As weeks turned into a month, the villagers began to notice Mehak's presence in Rashid's home. At first, there were curious looks, gentle whispers, and soft questions. But no one spoke rudely. Because Rashid was respected in the town, people trusted him. Over time, seeing Mehak work hard at the tailoring shop and behave politely with everyone, the villagers stopped questioning her presence. Some even greeted her warmly or asked her for stitching work. Mehak's confidence grew steadily. She began earning her own small income. She bought her own soap, a simple hairbrush, and later even a pair of new shoes. These little things meant a lot to her because they showed she was standing on her own again. Life in Rashid's home now felt stable. Mehak helped cook sometimes, and Rashid helped her with things like setting up a small corner for her stitching work. They respected each other's space. Their conversations were soft and sincere, filled with understanding rather than demands. One evening, after a long day at work, Mehak sat in the courtyard, looking at the sunset. The sky was painted orange and pink, and the air was calm. Rashid joined her with 2 cups of tea. "You seem thoughtful," he said. Mehak smiled softly. "I was thinking about how much has changed in such a short time." "Change can be frightening," Rashid said, "but sometimes it brings the things we never expected." Mehak looked at him with gentle eyes. "You gave me a place when I had no one. You trusted me when I didn't trust myself. I will always remember that." Rashid looked away shyly, scratching his beard. "I only did what I believed was right." Mehak was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that came from the deepest part of her heart. "You helped me heal." Rashid didn't respond immediately. He only nodded. His eyes filled with emotions he never spoke out loud. That night, Mehak went to her room, feeling lighter. Rashid sat in the courtyard for a long time, thinking about how unexpectedly life had brought Mehak into his home, and how naturally she had become part of it. Both of them were healing in their own ways. Mehak was rebuilding her self-respect, her identity, her confidence. Rashid was rediscovering connection, warmth, and a reason to look forward to each new day. Neither had planned for this bond, but fate had brought them together, 2 broken hearts learning to trust life again. And though neither said it out loud yet, both sensed that their story was far from over. The next morning arrived with gentle sunlight touching the windows of the house, and for the first time in a long while, Samuel woke up with a feeling of calm instead of loneliness. He sat up slowly, letting the warmth settle in his chest as he remembered everything that had happened in the last few days. Amelia's arrival had changed the rhythm of his life so quickly, yet so naturally, it felt as if she had been part of the home for years. He walked into the kitchen and noticed that she had already woken up. She was standing near the window, quietly watching the birds outside, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. When she heard him enter, she turned with a gentle smile, one that carried hope rather than fear. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It was a quiet silence, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that forms when 2 people understand each other without words. Samuel made his own tea and sat at the table, and Amelia joined him. They talked softly about small things, the weather, the view from the window, and the sound of the morning train that ran past the distant tracks. Each topic felt ordinary, yet comforting, because it showed how life was slowly beginning to settle into a new pattern for both of them. As days turned into weeks, their lives continued to blend in small but meaningful ways. Amelia helped Samuel with household chores, arranging things in the kitchen and tending to the small garden he had neglected for years. Samuel noticed how she brought warmth into every corner she touched. The once quiet house now had the sound of footsteps, the smell of fresh meals, and the presence of someone who cared about the little things. It no longer felt like a place where memories were trapped in time. It was becoming a living home again. Samuel started sharing stories about his late wife with Amelia, not out of sadness, but as a way of honoring the past. Amelia listened with respect, never once feeling threatened or overshadowed by the memories. Instead, She saw how deeply Samuel had loved before, and she understood that love didn't disappear just because life changed. She admired the strength it took for him to open up again and let someone new into his world. On the other hand, Samuel learned about Amelia's life, her dreams, and how she had always wished for a family she could rely on. He saw how much she longed for stability, not wealth or luxury, just a place she could call her own. But not everything was easy. There were moments when Amelia found herself lost in thoughts about being left at the train station. Sometimes she woke up from sleep feeling anxious, as if she might lose everything again. Samuel noticed these moments, and each time, he made sure she knew she wasn't alone. He would sit with her, speak softly, or simply hold her hand until the fear faded away. His calm presence gave her the courage she needed to rebuild her sense of security. One evening, they sat outside on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft colors. Amelia shared something she had never said before, that she still carried a quiet fear of being unwanted. A fear that came from being abandoned so suddenly on what should have been the most important day of her life. Samuel listened patiently, and then told her with sincerity that a home was not something someone gave out of pity. A home was built on trust, kindness, and shared respect. He told her she belonged not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she had created a place for herself in his life. His words touched her deeply, and for the first time, she felt completely safe from the past. As more weeks passed, their bond grew stronger. What had started as a simple act of kindness slowly turned into companionship. They made a routine of taking evening walks along the quiet roads, shopping for groceries together, and having long conversations by the fireplace in the evenings. Each day brought new understanding, new comfort, and new reasons to be grateful for the unexpected twist of fate that had brought them together. The neighbors also noticed the change. People who had once pitied Samuel for living alone now smiled when they saw him walking with Amelia. They admired how kindness had quietly shaped their story. Some neighbors even visited them, bringing small gifts or asking how they were doing. Amelia welcomed everyone warmly, and soon she became a familiar, friendly presence in the community. Even the children in the neighborhood grew fond of her gentle nature. One afternoon, Samuel found Amelia sitting in the living room, sewing a small cushion cover for the old sofa. The sunlight made her look peaceful, almost glowing. He realized then that his home wasn't just filled with warmth, his heart was too. He had spent years thinking his life story was at its end after losing his wife. But meeting Amelia had given him a new chapter he never expected. He walked over and thanked her for everything she had brought into his life. Amelia looked surprised, then smiled with emotion, telling him that he had saved her when she had nothing but fear in her heart. It was around this time that Samuel made a decision. He wanted Amelia to know that her place in his life wasn't temporary or uncertain. One evening, while they sat near the fireplace, he gently asked her if she would stay with him, not just as someone he had helped, but as a true partner in his life. Amelia was overwhelmed. She had come to care for Samuel deeply, but she never imagined he would want something so meaningful. She held his hands and, with tears of joy, agreed. In that moment, all the fear of the past dissolved, replaced by a future built on mutual trust. News of their decision spread happily through the neighborhood. People praised Samuel for his courage and admired Amelia for her strength. Their union was not built on grand celebrations or expensive customs. It was built on something more real: compassion, understanding, and the knowledge that fate had brought them together at a time when both needed someone the most. The day they officially began their life as partners was simple yet beautiful. The house was decorated with fresh flowers from their garden, and a few close neighbors joined them for a small gathering. Amelia wore a modest dress that suited her gentle personality, and Samuel looked happier than he had in years. There were no loud festivities, yet the atmosphere was filled with warmth. Everyone could feel the quiet joy that surrounded them. After the guests left, Samuel and Amelia sat together in the living room, feeling the peace of their new beginning. They talked about their plans, how they would grow the garden, repair old parts of the house, and continue building a life that honored both the past and the future. Amelia felt deeply grateful, not because she had found a home, but because she had found someone who valued her heart. Samuel felt equally thankful, knowing life had given him another chance to love and be loved. Their days continued with harmony, understanding, and a deep sense of companionship. They faced challenges like any other pair, but they overcame each one, together. Every morning began with shared tea near the window, and every evening ended with quiet conversations or peaceful silence. Their home became a place where two lives, once marked by loneliness and hurt, came together to form something strong and beautiful. In the end, their story was not about the pain they faced but about the healing that followed. A widower who had lost his purpose and a bride left behind on a train station platform found each other by chance. But it was not chance alone that shaped their journey. It was kindness, courage, and the willingness to trust again. Their lives became proof that sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most meaningful relationships. And so, the house that once stood quiet and lonely now echoed with laughter, conversation, and the warmth of two hearts that had finally found their home.